Hello everyone and welcome to Forever Rugby for today's 5 things we learned after week 4 of Super Rugby Unlocked. And basically we're just going to be looking at things that I picked up that we saw over the weekend and that we sort of need to think about going into this weekend. Before we go any further, please do consider subscribing. Bottom right hand corner there, smash a like if you enjoy the video and jump in the comments. Let me know what you think of the Super Rugby Unlocked in general, what you think of some of the teams, the players' performances, and all that type of thing. I want to hear what your opinions so basically, before we get into further, so it's just going to be sort of a roundup of 5 different aspects of the competition and the teams that we learned over the weeks. Without any further ado, let's go and check out number one. Right, so number one is Stormers' fitness levels. And I think anyone that watched the game against Bulls, they just looked completely down on their feet from early stages in the game. It was quite worrying in many ways. They were now 6 weeks on from the return of rugby, and the Stormers just don't seem to be, their fitness levels just don't seem to be there. And, you could argue, but they managed to come back against the Pumas. But even then, they struggled in the first half with the pace of the game. The reason that they managed to come back is because they got a lot tighter and tried to slow the game down. But you can just see that as soon as the Stormers have to play a high-tempo game, especially at altitude, they were really, really struggling, and the Bulls just exploited them, and the Stormers couldn't keep up. So not that it's something that they can make a massive turnaround in a short space of time, but it is a very worrying sign that they do seem to be very far below the required fitness levels. And yes, it's been sort of the whole COVID-19 thing, so they were out for a long time, but we have been back, as I said, for 6 weeks. So you would like to have thought that they would have had the time to actually sort that out and to be back to their best. But that's something that they need to definitely look at and improve on if they are to sort of improve as we enter the last stages of Super Rugby Unlocked and the beginning stages of Currie Cup. Moving on to number two. Right, so number two, talking about the Bulls as favourites, and they definitely are. And I mean, they proved a lot of people wrong because after the first 2 performances, we were saying it's after all the signings they made, and yes, they've had some very, very bad luck with injuries. Nazam Carr with injuries, Hero Aplon out for the season. But, Jake White coming in to lead a revolution and establish the Bulls as, the leading side in South Africa once again. And they were just pretty poor in the first couple of weeks and just didn't really look like they had much of a plan. They were struggling to execute the basics. And to be fair, Dwayne Vermeulen just said, that the plan is there, that the idea is there, and that they just weren't being clinical enough. In the last 2 weekends, they put on 2 very clinical displays, and they've thrashed the Stormers and thrashed the Sharks. So, what more could you want from them, really? And then now got an opportunity to play the Lions this weekend. So, Cheetahs, I think last week, if you'd asked last week, you would have said Cheetahs, maybe the Bulls. Now the Bulls are definitely the established favourites. And if they go and beat the Lions, then they could pretty much wrap this up competition up quite quickly. Which is a good thing for South African rugby. It was always sort of sad that the Lions were outperforming the other unions by so much because you want to see South African dominance across the board, and it's just frustrating that it always seems to be one team that has to carry the flag, and it kind of changes. Whereas you'd like to see, a situation like New Zealand had in over Super Rugby, where it was always sort of 4 New Zealand sides in the playoffs, along with the one South African side, maybe the Jaguars. It was just frustrating. So we need the unions to be competitive, and it's good to see that the Bulls are getting better. We now need the Sharks to step up again. We need the Lions to get back to the best, and we need the Stormers to be competitive. So when we move into Pro 16 next year, that they are all competitive, and we are competing across the board. Moving on to number 3. Right, so the Lions proved this last weekend that when they stick to what they know, they are still very, very effective. I think at the end of the day, the Lions led the whole revolution with the fact that they played a very exciting brand of rugby, and they need to stick to that, and they did this weekend. This weekend, they didn't want to kick the ball a lot. There was a lot of running. There was a lot of counter-attack. Even when they kicked ahead, there was a lot of sort of just not necessarily just looking to return the ball, but, maybe seeing, okay, there's some space. Let's try and play. And, they scored a couple of tries from deep, which is good to see. And I think, despite being under pressure, the biggest thing with the Lions is you've got to stick with your DNA. You've got to stick with what you know. And it's a system that they're trying to put in from the very, very bottom. I mean, even Wits University is trying to play some very attacking rugby. Through to the Lions under 21s, who also played very nice rugby. And it's because it's worked for them in the past, you've got to try and stick with it. And I think they did this weekend. And I think the return of Skorsan and the return of Sian Pienaar and Wandisile Simelane was a commitment to going back to what they were known for. And that's flair, throw the ball around, don't just play the sort of tight game. And I think the forwards did stand up and provide a nice platform. But it was good to see the Lions going back to what they do best, and it was effective. And even in the past, the defense was always a little bit dodgy. But at the end of the day, if you're scoring 40, 50, 60 points, if you have the capability to put 50 points, 40 points behind any team, you can win games like that because you can afford to concede 20 to 30, knowing and having the confidence that you can outscore them. It's a brave tactic, but it's an entertaining tactic, and it's what they knew, and it's what made them so enjoyable to watch for so many years. So it's good to see them going back. Right, moving on to number 4. So outside center, what a ridiculous amount of talent within the country when it comes to outside center. I mean, you're talking about it. Somebody mentioned in the comments as well, in the previous video, the fact that Lukhanyo is currently the number 1 choice in South Africa. Jesse Creel was playing there a lot and then got injured, so we've got those two who sort of been and even then, it was like always frustrating. Like when Jesse Creel would play, a lot of people play, why isn't playing? And then would play and maybe not the best game. People are saying, well, why isn't Jesse Creel playing? Which is a very nice situation to be in. But even after that, you've got the likes of Wandisile Simelane, you've got the likes of Stefan Gans, you've got the likes of Rooand now. Johnny Kotze was playing some nice rugby at the beginning of the year. So, we talk about sometimes, you are in an embarrassment of riches. And I think at the moment, outside centre is one of those positions for South Africa. Wing could be another one, especially if the Pierre Diante gets cleared. We have to wait and see what's going to happen about that. But I mean, as I said, I named 5 players there who I think 4 of them are test quality already. I think Stefan Gans still needs. Look, Simelane also needs some time, but I think Stefan Gans still needs a bit of time to sort of make that shift. But those two, I mean, Gans and Simelane are very much, future talents and potentially future Springboks. And then you've got Ruan now, Jesse Creel, and Lukhanyo who personally, could probably play. It could all interchange tomorrow in Springboks and be as good. And I mean, I'm still the number 1 first choice, but I think he's going to be under a lot of pressure, knowing that there is so much talent that if he's underperforming, there are a lot of players there ready to come and take his place. And then finally, right, so looking across the weekend, it is, whilst it's very entertaining, there have been so many tries scored, so many points conceded, and unfortunately, a lot of it points towards a very sort of poor standard and of defenses within the tournament. And if you look over the weekend, there were 27 tries scored across 3 games, which is just shy of 10 tries a match, which is ridiculous. It's literally 9 tries a match. So that and that's a lot of tries. But I don't know it's Super Rugby and you want to see people throwing the ball around, but I think the issue is 198 points scored in total with an average of 66 points per match, which makes it a great watch. And this is what I keep saying. It's frustrating in that you'd probably like to see tighter games in terms of not less sloppiness, but it is entertaining to watch. But I think the worrying sign is that 106 tackles were missed this weekend, 106 missed tackles, and 633 tackles were made, which means our tackle success rate across the 3 matches weekend was sitting at 83%, which is really not good enough. In comparison, Australia recorded an 87% tackle success rate against New Zealand and still lost 43-5, whilst New Zealand recorded an 89% tackle success rate against Australia. So, yes, it's very entertaining to watch, but we do need to up the standards on the defense within the competition because, I don't understand why sloppy it is, but 6 weeks on, you've got to sort it out. The defensive structures need to be better. I just think of that Madosh Tambwe try where he just looked up and saw acres of room and had the time to run from almost the middle of the park out wide and then through the gap, which was a bit childish really at how easy it was for him to find that gap. So, I think moving into this weekend, I'd really like to see better defenses, and whilst we still want to see tries, you want to see tries being earned. If it's like I'm thinking of the Simelane offload, take 2 players and somehow out of nowhere manage to get a hand in between and pass out. Fair enough. The tackle was made at the end of the day and it was a fantastic offload. But you think of the Tambwe try, you think there are a lot of places where it's just missed tackles. You think of when Ginter Smuts walked past Steve Satole, that was just lazy defending, and that needs to improve this weekend because it won't translate well next year. But that are the 5 things that we did learn. Please do consider subscribing. Bottom right-hand corner there, smash a like. Jump in the comments. Let me know what you've learned, what you think of the competition so far, and what you'd like to see this weekend. Previews and more coming up. Then please make sure you keep your eyes locked on Forever Rugby, on Forever Sport. My name is Stephen Pettit, and thank you very much for watching.